Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg Rzavosty with Find Your Film. It has been since April since I've actually posted on this Find Your Film podcast feed. Many reasons why. One big reason is because I'm doing most of my podcasting over at Cinematics with Eric Holmes and Bruce Perkey, and I just haven't been really organized or had the time to actually post on Find Your Film. But moving forward, I really want to post at least once or twice on this Find Your Film feed, which means I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you might not even know what this podcast is about. So I'm going to reboot on what's the aim of this podcast. Initially, it started off with me, Eric, and Bruce. Me, Eric Holmes, Bruce Perkey, trying to talk about movies that are underrated gems or in spotlight on filmmakers. It was really cool, and we did that for a couple of years. If you look back on our feed, you're going to see a whole bunch of really interesting filmmaker spotlights and reviews of different fringe or indie movies. So go back on our Find Your Film feed and hopefully you'll find some really good stuff we did. I'm trying to think. Sidney Lumet, we did a great episode on Sidney Lumet where we spotlighted his work and Samuel Fuller. Just a whole list of the late William Friedkin, a lot of stuff in the past. Now, moving forward, what you guys will get from Find Your Film is my weekly interviews with actors, directors, screenwriters in the film and television field. For this episode, there is an underrated movie, I believe, that's coming out or is actually out right now as of Friday, August 9th. Maybe if you don't want to see Deadpool and Wolverine or Twisters or want some kind of alternate viewing this weekend in theaters and you're itching for a war movie, The Last Front might be the movie for you. It's set at the dawn of World War I in a Belgian village. And I'm looking right now at the plot summary. It says the Lambert family finds themselves thrust into the heart of the conflict in the last front. At the center is Leonard Lambert, played by Iain Glen. You might know Iain Glen from his work as in Game of Thrones, but he's had an illustrious career. He was the guy who really had a torch or a flame or just wanted to be. He was friend zoned basically by Khaleesi. Jorah Mormont, I believe that's his name in Game of Thrones. So you might know him from there, but he has a great career. Just look on his IMDb, just a laundry list of projects, mainly film projects. And towards the end of my interview with Iain Glen and co-star Sasha Luss, I asked them about one of his earlier movies called Mountains of the Moon, which was directed by Bob Rafelson. And Bob Rafelson is a filmmaker. If I recall, I did interview him way back when for the press junket for a movie he did called Blood and Wine. So Bob Rafelson's a very interesting filmmaker. He's directed some really cool films like Five Easy Pieces, The King of Marvin Gardens, etc. So I asked him about Mountains of the Moon, a film that came out, I think I'm looking right now on IMDb, came out somewhere in 1990. So this is from 1990, and this is an earlier film from Iain Glen. So he talks about that towards the end of the interview, which is really interesting. Mountains of the Moon, unfortunately, I remembered it as an 18 or 19-year-old thinking, like, maybe I should go see this movie. I never got around to seeing it in theaters. Now, unfortunately, it's not, as of this recording, available for streaming or digital or purchase on digital, which really, really sucks. So the first part of my interview, I have Iain Glen and Sasha Luss, and they are the co-stars in this movie. And essentially, Iain Glen plays this farmer in this small Belgian town, and the Nazis descend upon this village, and ultimately a lot of bad things happen. Sasha Luss plays a young, well-to-do young woman who is in love with the son of Leonard. Leonard is played by Iain Glen. And the son is Adrian, played by James Downie. James Downie, as well as screenwriter-director Julien Hayet-Kerknawi, are the second part of the interview. So first, you're going to get Sasha Luss and Iain Glen. And second segment, you're going to get filmmaker Julien Hayet-Kerknawi and James Downie. James Downie, again, plays the son in The Last Front. Now, what I really loved about The Last Front is it's a World War I film, but it's just a really, how do I say this? It's not your average war film. It's very introspective, insightful, and obviously with the Nazis descending upon the village, most of this 98-minute narrative is just a lot of tension and nerves and tragedy. But there is a time to, what happens is that Julien Hayet goes a little bit Terrence Malick-y on the proceedings, and it's really that's what I mean by reflective and insightful. There's a little bit of flourishes in that. In the third act, there is a fire action sequence that is beautiful to look at, and it's very well done. And I referenced it, and I asked the filmmaker how he shot that. And actually, he mentions in the interview, there's a scene from that fire sequence, which is essentially a still, and that still, which is upscaled by a lot, serves as the poster for The Last Front. The movie also stars Joe Anderson. He plays one of the Nazis, Lorenz, and he's always been an actor that I've really enjoyed. And what has Joe Anderson recently been in? I have to look it up right now, and I apologize. But there's another war film that he was in, and he was actually excellent in that. Hold on one second, and I know you guys are gonna kill me right now. He was in a movie called Murder Company, which, by the way, Murder Company has a rating of 3.9 on IMDb, which I absolutely have no idea how it's so low. It's a very good movie as well. So, anyways, The Last Front, he plays a Nazi in this movie, and he just expands his range, and he's the main antagonist in The Last Front. If you want action, it's there. If you want a solid drama, it's there as well, because most of the drama centers around this just, well, I'm not saying impoverished family, but it's a struggling farming family. And again, the patriarch is played by Iain Glen. It's how he's trying to get his children, he has a son and a daughter, to safety in the middle of this Nazi mini takeover of the Belgian village. So there's action, heartbreak, and insightful stuff in The Last Front. It will look, I have not seen it on the big screen, but I surmised on my computer screen, which is big, at least in my opinion. I don't know, it's at least, it's big enough. It looked really beautiful on the screen. So I can't even imagine what it would look like in theaters. So if you want something different this weekend, give it a shot, because especially if you are a World War, a war, I don't want to say war fanatic, but if you love war films, this one has a really interesting look at the war. And yeah, I don't know. It's really cool that a movie like The Last Front is being released in theaters amidst all the big blockbusters out there. And if you want some alternate viewing, give The Last Run a shot. And maybe with these two interviews, first one with Iain Glen and Sasha Luss, second one with James Downie and filmmaker Julien Hayet-Kerknawi, you might be inclined to do so. And if you do see it, just comment or hit me up. Tell me what you think of The Last Front. Here are the interviews. And oh, moving forward, these won't be just interview dumps on a weekly basis. When I do these interviews, I'm asking also filmmakers some insights on their craft as well as the actors, and I want to get a ton of movie picks from the people I get to talk to, and I will be putting the movie picks on our website, discussing them on the podcast. I think the big one for this one is Mountains of the Moon. Whenever it's available, I definitely want to check it out. But unfortunately, in our streaming age, you think there's so many movies available, but in digital age, but a lot of movies just can't be found. I mean, not can't be found, aren't just available, like Mountains of the Moon. Also, Sasha Luss, towards the end of the interview, she mentioned her role in the Luc Besson film Valerian. I don't know what the full name of Valerian is, but I remember watching that movie at a screening and thinking that it would actually do well, and it didn't do well at all. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, directed by Luc Besson. And what's interesting is Sasha Luss recommended that film. I believe she's in the movie. She mentions she was in it for a little bit, but Sasha Luss ended up being a lead in the Besson movie Anna, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a movie that I still have not seen. So from this set of interviews, the movies I definitely need to see moving forward after The Last Front are number one, Mountains of the Moon, and number two, Anna. I think Anna is currently streaming. If you have seen Anna, was released in 2019. Tell me what you think. James Downie is a relatively new actor, so it's really interesting to see where his career is going to go as well. And Julien Hayet-Kerknawi, I'm definitely butchering that name. He is a filmmaker to watch. Just really loved. He mentions in the interview about his passion for framing a shot, and you can see from The Last Front that it is a very well thought out movie visually, and the actual storytelling is well done as well. Think of it as a B movie mixed in with a family drama, mixed in with a filmmaker who knows how to effectively compose a whole bunch of a series of images. It's a movie that I definitely can't wait to see it again. And maybe I'm looking at the trailer right now. It's just so gorgeous to look at. So again, The Last Run, I'm babbling too much. Check out these interviews, Sasha Luss and Iain Glen first, and next, Julien Hayet-Kerknawi and James Downie. All right, take care, guys, and thanks for supporting me here on Find Your Film, the Find Your Film podcast. I've changed hosting providers to Podbean, so hopefully this will work out. And yeah, Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes, they are doing cinematics full time. Once in a while, they're going to hopefully pop in on the Find Your Film podcast feed, and I'll have a lot more stuff to do. Maybe physical media reviews here on this channel, movie reviews, maybe have some other podcasters on this channel as well. But yeah, it's a start of something new, or maybe something old, but I'm starting to post again. And hopefully it won't take another 4 months for me to post another episode of Find Your Film. Most importantly, see these movies, tell me what you think of The Last Front, and enjoy these interviews, and have a great week watching movies. Take care, guys. Bye. Guys, what's up? Good to meet you guys.
Hey.
Yes. So as a cinephile, I really love The Last Front. Just from your expert perspective, were you surprised at the final cut of this film, at how visually immersive it is, and as well as how really solid the storyline is? Were you both surprised, or was this what you expected when you guys saw the final cut?
Shall I go?
I'm sorry?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, no, I was really genuinely surprised. I think it's because, where we are and we're in front of the camera, and I'm not running to look at the monitor at the end of each take. And I kind of, sometimes when I'm not on camera, I might have a little look. I knew, the DP was absolutely fantastic. And I knew visually at any shot that I saw, but no, the way that it was pieced together, and I think they went through quite a full circle in terms of how the film might be edited. And Julien said that they were trying lots of different things, and then just really came back to the script story, and the chronology within the natural chronology in the script. I think there was a little bit of juggling, but hardly any in the final cut. But I think visually, I was just really. I think it's such a beautiful film when it was to be beautiful, and very violent when it's violent, and the visuals are incredibly strong. And it's there to support what fundamentally is a story about just simple people trying to live their simple lives in Belgium at the beginning of the First World War, and this unexpected war happens upon them. And so part of the visuals allow you to just see the beautiful kind of serene, peaceful life of these people, and nature itself kind of has its role within the film, and nature is kind of torn apart by the war that happens and represents some way echoes what's happening to the people within it. But it's very, very simple storytelling, but it does need quite a consummate hand making the visuals happen and making so they don't overburden the film, but just completely support it. So I was really delighted. The first time I saw it properly was at the premiere in Belgium, and it was an amazing reaction, and I was very happy with the film as a whole.
Yeah. What about you, Sasha? Were you at the premiere as well, and were you surprised?
No, I couldn't go, unfortunately, but I saw the film, and I always try to kind of be like, it's not me, it's not my face. It's just I'm watching a movie, I'm watching a story, and I had this feeling tingle, and I was immersed in the story, and I really felt for them, even though I knew exactly what's going to happen, but I was still taken by, and I thought it was extremely poetic, and that kind of nature versus human, and this universal spirit of man on fighting for their loved ones and survival. And I absolutely loved it. And I remember when we were filming it, and you kind of think of how it's going to turn out, because as Iain said, we don't really get to see it. I don't watch the playback or something like that, but you watch it. And I remember watching it with my friend, and I kind of was trying to be what's her reaction is going to be, because for her it's all new, and she was oh, and I'm okay, we're good, because even as I can distance myself from it, it's still kind of I'm part of it, but for her it's a whole new story, and she loved it, and I'm you've done something really good there.
Yeah, Iain, just visually, there's a sequence action sequence involving fire, which under lesser hands, fire could be used as just sort of on a visual level, but it's telling a story and it's very immersive. And as a watcher, you're actually drawn into the poetry and the savagery of the moment. You as the actor, how hard was it to shoot that sequence? I mean,
Yeah, it was really well managed by the production, and it was quite late in the filming. I mean, mostly we did things in roughly the chronology, but this was a kind of, they saved this because it was one of the biggest set pieces, and it was night shoot, and I can't remember how many night shoots. It was sort of 4 or 5 night shoots we had in a row. And it was hard, but they managed it. They managed it really, really well, and I sometimes have to be held back a little bit. I can, safety will tell me you shouldn't go beyond there, and then you're in the situation and you can sort of feel that you can go a little bit beyond there because of you're actually there and you can see what the fire effect is doing and how it's done. And it felt easy to play because it was all set up properly, and it was all, all the safety procedures were followed, and so it felt comfortable. But it was complicated. There were horses, there were the soldiers, there was gunshots, there was shoots through the fire and everything. It was a big sort of number, but in a way, it's the kind of the really hard emotional stuff in a film like this that I find the most difficult to go through, rather than the kind of action stuff or the stuff involving that you're talking about, because you just run on adrenaline like this, and it's outside you, and you just need to but you have to react to what's in front of you, and that's in a way, that feels easier than trying to put yourself through the loss that you're having to feel in different moments of the thing, which I never enjoy. It's a kind of trauma you have to sort of slightly put yourself through. As an actor, of course, it's not the real thing, but for it to feel real to the viewer, you have to put yourself through it. You can't kind of. And so you confuse yourself emotionally, you confuse yourself sort of psychologically. And I can feel my body at the end of these sort of days kind of trying to think, okay, well, it's a hotel room. Well, we're back here because you've been somewhere else for 12 hours or whatever. So actually, the kind of action is a bit of a release from that. But the whole journey of the film, honestly, it was so lovely inhabiting the life of a farmer in the Belgian, in those beautiful early scenes, and they're all about the family. It was very lovely. I enjoyed that very much. So it was a trajectory through the film that was, I really enjoyed the journey of it, and it was a great bunch of actors to work with.
My final question is a two-parter for both of you. Sasha, from your resume after watching this film, what would you recommend our listeners and viewers to watch from your resume, and why?
Well, obviously watch The Last Run. Of course. I don't know, I have a very small part, I play a very small part in it, but an important one. It's a movie called Valerian and the City of Southern Planets. And it's an amazing sci-fi story. It's really exciting. It's based on a comic book that started Star Wars. So all the fans of Star Wars, which I'm sure there are plenty, you're going to love it. It's a great film.
And on that note, Iain, I apologize to you personally, because after all these years, I love Bob Rafelson. I still haven't seen Mountains of the Moon. Can you speak? What was it like working with Rafelson, Deakins, Birkin, that whole experience? I know it's a while back. And how does it feel to you now over the years people consider this movie to be a classic and underrated?
I loved Bob, and he sadly died recently, but I was asked to speak about him. I adored the experience. It was like very heady for me. I was a very young actor. We were shooting in Africa. Roger, as you say, shooting it. He was great. He was mad as a hatter. Bob Rafelson. I mean, he was crazy. He was funny. He was a funny man. He took no prisoners, but we bonded really, really closely right early in the film. And I did some wild things with Bob. We would go from location to location in these wee twin engine airplanes. And he would be saying to the pilot, hey, let Iain, he can fly. He's a fucking pilot. Give him and I'm like, oh, God. He just shoved me up front, and I'm driving this freaking plane under clouds and stuff. And Bob would go, hey, I told you, the guy's a genius. He would just put me through funny things all the time. It was a journey. It was a period film, Victorian. He's an American cool director who'd done a very different bunch of films, and it was a great adventure. I loved him, and it's a sad loss that he's gone.
You have so much.
It's a good film, but you should watch it. It's a good film. It's a good film.
Yeah.
He always said it, he thought it was his best films, and you look at the other things that Bob made, and you think that's a compliment.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really love The Last Front.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you too. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
So I'm here with Julien Hayet-Kerknawi. Is that correct? And James Downie. Hopefully that is a correct enough pronunciation. Julien, first of all, with James, what did you see of him as an actor to actually propel the first part of your narrative? Because he has such a pivotal role and he does a really great job with Iain and the castmates. What did you see in him as an actor?
Well, he was. I casted James, and I never want to look back after 5 minutes of seeing his audition tape. James had this kind of innocent teenage heartthrob, like you saw in 90s cinema, with the long hair and the wavy kind of suave that you saw in him, this boyish innocence, naivety. And because the movie it goes further into the movie because it's about how the world looked like the story takes place in a world where we see how the world looked like before war breaks out in a region, and then how the characters, especially Ian's character, when he rises from the hero, from the farmer to the unlikely hero. And to have the movie start with James felt like a perfect fit, because the movie, after 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes of the movie, it's pure about family. All these little petty arguments about family, drenched into these beautiful light shafts of sunshine going through nature, and here and there some nice vistas. And then the world opens up, and we see the war entering the world of our characters. And I thought that, well, that's interesting. So I think before the audiences will connect on an emotional level with what we're seeing, they first have to enter that world through James's character. And that's crucial.
James, your character, he's in flux. He loves his family dearly, but he also wants to create a life and identity of his own with being in love and whatnot. Was it easy for you to tap into those emotions in that juncture? Maybe you are far past that point in your own journey, but was it easy to tap into those kind of emotions and conflicts?
I wouldn't say it wouldn't say it was hard, like tapping into them, but I guess it was hard sustaining them maybe throughout an entire day shoot, or, we shot it for a month. And, I think a lot of people, I hope the audience can relate to many elements of Adrian's conundrum, I think we all relate to wanting to make our father proud, but also we want to follow our heart in life. We want to do things that, we might not get approval of. And in Adrian's situation, it's sort of very of the time whereby, you can't choose who you fall in love with. You can't rationalize with the heart. The heart goes where it wants to go. And it just so happens Adrian meets the woman of his dreams, and she's from another class, another status. And the problems that emerge from that scenario is the fact that a few years prior to the action starting in the film, Adrian lost his mother. Because she came from a higher class, and then Ian's character Leonard, he blames himself for her death because living conditions back then on a farm were horrific. There wasn't access to medicine like we see today. There was just so many germs. It was freezing, and her body couldn't adjust to that environment, and so Ian's character Leonard blames himself for that, and then it gets to a point where Adrian and Leonard's characters, there's a big rift between them, but there's one scene, it's probably my favorite scene I do in the movie, and they were sitting across each other at the dinner table, and Leonard basically says to him, "If you love this woman, you'll let her go, otherwise she's going to die just like your mum did." And so there's this sort of real supercharged tension between them, but Adrian, he's an artist, he's a dreamer, he's a lover, and he can't not follow his heart. So it causes many problems in the family.
James, yourself being an artist, what is it like seeing just The Last Front, the final cut, and seeing how good the movie is? You're also pretty early in your acting journey as well. You don't have 500 movies in your IMDb, but what is it like to have this as sort of your anchor and this really accomplished film as part of your resume?
Oh man, I'm so proud of the film. It took a lot of hard graft getting it to where it is today, and I feel incredibly lucky and privileged to have been for Julien to have taken a punt on me all those years ago. I'm sure it would have been a lot easier. I don't know. It was been less risky, giving someone the role of Adrian who had a bigger resume than me. But I'm mainly from the world of theatre. This is my first film, and as actors, beggars can't be choosers. We do what we're given, but it just so happens my first movie is an absolute spectacle, and yeah, I just feel very lucky to have met Julien on the process. He's such a talented director, talented beyond his years, and obviously to work with the amazing Iain Glen. Yeah, like life was good to me.
Right. Right. Life is good to you as well, Julien, but it's also very hard. I'm looking as a cinephile at all your visual setups. What's the key to creating that spectacle, that epic film within a certain budget with so many setups and yeah, what is the key for that for people not in the know?
Well, so it's a beautiful question. I think it's when I was in school, I was always in my little world. I was always thinking and seeing something else than everything was focused on. There is something that I really enjoy in doing is to spend a lot of time on framing my shots and making sure that they just look like a painting. And this, oh man, you really got me with that question. You really got me with that. I try to make every scene a very like a spectacle that's very immersive for your eyes, but also very emotionally sincere and character driven. And I think a big risk on this movie was its emotional subjectivity, because it always makes you, every scene is designed to make you feel how the character, from his perspective, feels the events taking place. And that makes the movie loud and sometimes very, very intensive. Every shot is always tracking in on characters. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's always these very slow track-ins and the intensity. And also what I really indulged in was these very operatic type encounters. Like when Father Michael, like the priest arrives on that square and says, "Everybody stop." That was the scene I was waiting for years to shoot. That scene, a scene I that really still grips me when I watch it, because we were editing the movie for 14 months, and there was a moment in the edit that was 6 months after we shot it where I finally saw it, and it all clicked into each other. This operatic type of editing and visual spectacle to let it play out like as if it was a piece of opera. That's why I casted David Calder, because of his voice. It was just to be able to say that line, "My son," and if all the stakes were very scary by the time we would come into that scene, I think it would just push audiences in. It's like, what? It's like some kind of hypnosis you're getting in, and then I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Now I've been going too far left or right. Sorry.
Yeah, my final question is there is a sequence, I'm not going to give too much away, where that involves fire out in the forest, and wondering where that idea came from, because sometimes the use of fire can be used as just spectacle and on the surface level, but as you progress throughout the sequence, you realize it's about people trying to figure out what they're fighting for. Things are not very clear. Savagery and bravery are sort of commingled together, and it's very off-putting in a very interesting way. Can you talk about putting that fire in that sequence? And was it a long drawn out thought, or was it just arbitrary? Because it was very beautiful. Yeah.
No, it was from the first draft of the script. The movie ends on that insane fire battle. And what was to me very important was to have a set piece where the emotional intensity of the characters, and that emotional intensity is the result of this war, this conflict that has drowned everybody mad. And it's something that always scares me when I see kids saying, "I want to fight for my country," or maybe we should go. I see politicians. I'm always scared that we're pushing each other back into that level, because one smacks the one and the other you smack each other, and it gets harder and harder and more intensive, up until at the end, everything is devoid of humanity, of natural. And the only that thing that remains is pure fire, pure hate, pure rage, and nobody even knows what they're fighting for. And I was so, we shot it all with real fire. So we had this, it was shot on a 2-day basis with real fire, with real pyrotechnics. We had like 80 gas canisters, I think, for that sequence. And of course, Iain Glen, a legend from Game of Thrones, brought his immense experience on how to, properly act in such a complex setup. And I was so proud of that moment that it became the key visual of our movie. The poster it's actually a screenshot, a still from the film camera, our poster. It's not a picture. It's a still, a particular frame, massively sharpened, and we're using it for the entire campaign because it, to me, symbolizes everything about the emotional journey of going into war.
Great film. Thank you guys so much for your time. Looking forward to interviewing both of you down the road.
Thanks for watching, man. Real pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Greg. Have a great day.